The print, 19th of February 2024, How might India re-establish itself in the Maldives? It is the great game to exclude China from the Delhi event. India must significantly improve its performance to defend itself against China, which is engaging in a full-scale conflict against the Indian subcontinent. As the duration of any discourse about India's strategic policy extends, there is an increased likelihood that the dragon will enter the room. A discussion on India-Maldives relations that began on February 9, 2024 at the India International Centre evolved into examining China's involvement in the archipelago. Furthermore, it was the audience's inquiries regarding the silence of Maldivian President Mohamed Mutsu and his nation regarding China's persecution of Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang that drew Beijing into the discourse. Additionally, they recommended that New Delhi collaborate with Islamic countries to regain its footing in the Maldives. Rausen Pereira, the consultant anchor for Doordarshan and founder of the digital knowledge platform Bharata First, briefed the small but engaged audience of 30 individuals, comprising business people, former civil servants, and students, on the maritime situation in the Indian Ocean and India's strategic approach to its relationship with the Maldives. The discourse commenced with an examination of Mutsu's policies concerning India, more precisely, the withdrawal of the 77 Indian military personnel stationed in the archipelago nation. Elected on the India Out movement platform, Mutsu has sought support from Beijing in the East. As the discussion was presided over, former Indian ambassador to Qatar and current discussion chair KP Fabian emphasized that a formula regarding the presence of Indian troops could have been presented promptly following Mutsu's election. Is religion the primary distinction? In the vicinity of India and the Maldives, the introduction of Islam into the Indian subcontinent was intended to divide people of the same ethnicity. It has been utilized effectively to implement a divide-and-conquer strategy in that region. Preceding the exchange of viewpoints on China and India's divergent stances in the Indian Ocean, the discourse encompassed anti-Indian campaigns in the Maldives and religious distinctions. Muslims constitute the majority of the archipelago. Could the Maldives' sizable Islamic population be a contributing factor to the anti-Indian sentiment? Inquired an audience member, eliciting reflective murmurs from the others. Someone else questioned whether India could regain its influence in the Maldives by leveraging its good relations with Islamic nations such as the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia or Indonesia. Both Fabian and Pereira concurred that the notion possesses validity. Developing joint projects in the Maldives with a third country, an Islamic country, such as Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, or even Sri Lanka, would be a beneficial step toward rebuilding relations, Pereira said. Further stating that India had a poor history of successfully concluding infrastructure projects in the archipelago nation, he suggested that such an action could benefit Delhi's efforts in the area. Overall, the conversation nearly turned into a scene out of 19th-century Russia and England, elites debating the great game, in which two nations compete for dominance in an area. Pakistan was established as a component of the big game for this reason. Both speakers strongly opposed Mutsu's potential impeachment and India's stance regarding such a course of action. Fabian stated, India ought not to adopt a policy of regime change. Pereira, when asked why the majority of the world is mute regarding China's actions in Xinjiang, stated that the expansion of Beijing's diplomatic influence has rendered it impossible for Muslim nations to speak out. In his opinion, this influence is the consequence of the ambitious Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. This trillion-dollar endeavor aims to establish new trade routes linking Beijing with the rest of the world. BRI has been hailed as the project of the century. China sponsored the Apex India Out moment in Bangladesh and the Maldives as part of its India strategy. An audience member who worked in the tourism industry of the Maldives noted that the India Out politics should not be viewed as a competition between Beijing and Delhi. The primary concern revolved around the disputes that arose between former presidents Mohammad Nasheed and Ibrahim Sully, who had a personal feud. India Out was considerably stronger in 2011 to 2012, remarked an audience member. Nevertheless, this did not deter the discussion from once more deviating into the distinctions between the Chinese and Indian approaches to Mali. India maintains a pristine foreign policy record. In contrast, China guarantees that its citizens always receive what they desire from a nation, Pereira stated. Fabian replied to a query from the print concerning the substantial investments that Delhi made in the Maldives during the Sully administration and whether or not this created any leverage. Checkbook diplomacy is preferable to gunboat diplomacy.